Mabuhay! Ako si Lucayo. Taga San Bicol ako. My name is Lucayo. I'm of the Bicol people or Bicolano, Bicolana. And this is my kubing. I don't have a name for my kubing yet. Yeah, that's going to happen soon because I love giving names to my sacred instruments. And my kubing is made out of Kawayan bamboo to honor the bamboo, which we'll be talking about today. But what is happening right now? What is this thing that's happening? Okay, this is Agi Agi, which means story in Bicolano or Bicol. And it is a Filipino or Filipinx storytelling live stream series. Welcome, mabuhay. I'm going to drink some water because playing the kubing is really, it's like, it's very dehydrating for some reason. Yeah. All right. So before we begin some stories, just so you know, this is also a fundraiser and for reparations. A lot of these stories had really problematic content that was mean to a lot of people. And so what we're trying to do just trying to explain to the families back home is just to kind of make up for some of the things that have happened historically and, to build more kindness in the world. We're also doing funds and donating to these organizations. So if you like this live stream and you want to support it, you can donate. There's a PayPal link in the description, and any money that's donated for this live stream, just type Agi Agi, AGI -AGI, or Agi Agi. So that you just put that in as the reason why you're donating, and then so that money will go to the 4 causes that are listed, which is Salam Canada, Black Lives Matter Toronto, the work of Dr. Lynn Gale, an Anishinaabe elder, because, an Anishinaabe teacher. It's not my place to call somebody an elder from another nation that isn't mine, unless... Anyways, I know her as a teacher as well. And then the last is for the Manobo tribe at the foot of Mount Apo. So those are the 4. Other things that to note in the background, you're like, what's going on over there? These are malongs. They were gifted to me when I visited Babaylan conferences, which you can just message me if you want to know what that's all about. But Center for Babaylan Studies, you can Google that. I can put the links up, the comments. They've been really supportive in supporting the resurgence of Filipino culture. In the back is a painting from the homeland, from the Philippines, of the moon and the sun. And I also chose this day because it is Moon Day, Monday, the day of the moon, Araw ng Bulan. Araw ng Buwan in Tagalog, and Aldaw ni Bulan in Bicol. I know bits of both Bicolano and Tagalog, and they're going to merge sometimes when I talk. And so I have that in the background to honor the storytelling, and the Kawayan, which we'll explain. We're also going to talk about the nyug, the coconut. Other things. Oh, yes. I'll be reading from, I have them mostly memorized, so sometimes I'll be reading from this book. Woo! Philippine folk literature. Oh my gosh. So thick. Wow. Um, and yeah. Oh, I got a mention from someone I also consider a teacher and an elder. You can name anyone who is an elder to you as an elder. That is not presumptive, but merely a right as a human. You naming them as an elder to you does not convey that they are an elder in any other context. Maraming salamat po. I consider Sharp one of my teachers and elders, so I also consider Dr. Lynn Gale as them as well. Yes, and this is myths. This is, but I also understand these stories in a more personal context through dreams and visions from my ancestors. So some of them are going to be a little rejigged, but a lot of these are different versions. And so I'll be kind of telling you the version that I understand. As another note, I'm mostly going to be telling stories that are from the Tagalog, Bicol, and Visayan regions. There's over 183 ethno-linguistic peoples, sometimes called tribes or sometimes called ethno-linguistic groups. For those who need a refresher in the history of the archipelago known as the Philippines, there was a whole bunch of different tribes when the Spanish came, and also when the specific Arabic Muslims came in the south. And so, specifically for Spain, they did not want to learn all of our different cultures, so named us all after their king and made Tagalog the official language. So the region that I'm going to be talking about is mostly in the Luzon area, and then in Visayas, which is south of Luzon or central Philippines. The southern Philippines, where my other elders and teachers are from, called Mindanao, is a very different region with different languages. A lot of people don't know there are about 43 tribes. 13 of them are Islamicized, and then 30 still contain their original lineage and traditions, and they are right now still fighting for their traditional way of life in trying to work with the Philippine government, which is based on a colonial American and Spanish system. So we can talk more about that. We're here for stories. What am I doing with my intense international political etc. stuff? Yeah, let's get some stories. All right. If you have any questions about all of the stuff that I've been rambling about, please, you can post it in the messages and I'll reply when I can. But for now, I'm going to take some more water. All right. Yes. So this is about the creation story, or paglika, or paglalang. Paglalang. And like I said before, it's a mix of the Tagalog, the Bicol, and the Visayan, and I'll note which parts have been merged together and which comes from which group. But they're actually very similar. So a long, long time ago, at the beginning of the world, there was the sky, or the upper world, whose name was Languit, and the waters, the first waters. Some would say the underworld, or what I would call the underworld, because they were the very first waters. Tubigan. So in the Bicol and Visayan versions, they have names. And the Tagalog versions, they don't have names. They're just called the sky and the waters. So these two were the only beings in creation. And a lot of the different versions has them fighting real hard. And I don't know if you've ever, now that it's the times that we're in, where a lot of people are stuck indoors with only one other person, eventually, no matter how much you love each other, you're going to get on each other's nerves. And if you are the two beings in all of creation just staring at each other, literally opposite, just staring at each other the whole time, you're going to start fighting. In some versions, they were fighting and then they came up with the idea to have children. In other versions, they weren't fighting and it was actually this bird that started this all. Just like a bird out of nowhere, the first bird of all beings. Um, in the Tagalog versions, it's called a kite, which is a specific kind of bird of prey that's kind of like a hawk. If you're thinking of a kite that you fly in the sky with the little paper and the string, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something like more like the sharp beak, smaller than an eagle, about the size of a hawk. Anyways, it's a bird of prey. In the Visayan versions, this bird has a name, Manuul. In some Visayan versions, this is the king of space, of the destiny of space, which is like an amazing term. I'm not really sure if the English translation got that right. I was like, what is the king of the destiny of space? A really great bird. Anyways, but this bird is also exhausted because there's no land. So starts the fight between the two. Um, in the Visayan version, where they're not fighting, instead, they have a kid each. They just kind of like, now there's a child. Each of them have a child. What do the children do? They grow up, they fall in love. Ooh, it's great. Um, one child is named Dagat, which means the sea, and the other child is named Paros, which means the winds. And Paros and Dagat, you know, fall in love, have children, and they have 4 kids. They have Daga, they have Aldao, they have Bulan, and they have Bitoon. So for folks who um, don't know Bicolano, it's pretty much Daga means the earth, Aldao means the sun. Oops, the other side. Woo! Bulan means the moon, and Bitoon means the star. Why am I pointing at myself? Not just because I'm a drama queen, but I am. But my last name, Estrella, also means Bitoon. So I'm always like, I'm the star of the story. Anyway, I love this story. So everything is fine because there's like this huge happy family. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are now 8 beings in creation. So Languit and Tubigan aren't extremely bored anymore. Um, and so in this version, where there is no bird, there's just this big family. Everything seems to be great until the parents die. And so there is always a point in these stories where death is introduced. And I think that's really important to understand because with life, there is also death. And Languin and Tubigan knew that because they were the first immortal beings. And they knew that if they created something and brought life, they would also bring death, the other part of the equation, as a balance. But the children didn't understand that. They were just like, why do our parents have to die? Why can't they be immortal as you? And, Languid and Tubigan tried to explain about how the circle of life and death is together, and that sometimes you actually don't really die because then the parents can continue among the children, and this is how life is supposed to go on in the way creation is built. That if things were always the same, they would stagnate and there would be no beauty, there would be no growth. But because of death, then things can also grow and things can also change and there's new possibilities. And so Bitoon uh, understood that as the youngest. They had the type of personality, as I don't know if you've ever had like a big family and the youngest sibling would like follow everyone around and copy them and figure things out. Anyways, I'm the eldest in my family, but I really get where Bitoon is coming from. And so they had also spent a lot of time with their grandparents, Languid and Tubigan. And so they started to really understand the teachings. But the eldest, just refused. And so they grabbed Aldao and they grabbed Bulan, the twins, and they're like, we're gonna take over and we're gonna make ourselves immortal and we're gonna make sure that we never have to die and maybe you can bring our parents back. Anyways, yes, there's also crying outside. That is the weeping of Daga internally. And so he's like, I'm gonna take over the sky. And so the three of them rush up to the upper world, to the sky world, to overthrow Languit. And Languit was so angry and so consumed with the disrespect and just couldn't understand why, that the guy was smashed into many, many pieces. And then Languit burned Al Dao and threw them one way, and burned Bulan and threw them the other way, and then they became two balls in the sky that barely ever met, to punish the twins and separate them. And then found Bituon, who was wandering around being like, where are my siblings? And also shattered Bituon into thousands of pieces. And then at that point, there was only Tubigan left. And Tubigan was like, hey, hey. Or maybe Tubigan roared around like the ocean. I always sensed Tubigan was more of a grandmother type, and was like, hoy, listen to me. Anyways, Languit was like, oh, what have I done? And Tubigan is like, what have you done? We are the only ones left in creation yet again. And Languit was filled with remorse and wept and wept. And Tubigan said, we don't have to stop it here. This doesn't have to be the end. We still have power within us. We can bring our grandchildren back. And so Languit lent their light to the sun, to the moon, and all of the stars, and so they could still live on in some way. And they shine down and try to give guidance and gifts and care to Daga, the earth, and their children, the children of Daga, because Languit was still kind of salty and did not want to give any light to Daga at all. But Tubigan, through her own tears, weeping on Daga's body, a plant began to grow. Yes, a plant. Guess what kind of plant? And then there, in my version of the story, Languit relented and gave some light into the plant, in hoping that the children of the Ga will understand the cycle of life and death, and be able to heal creation from all of the shattering that had happened at the beginning, and understand the role of the sun and the moon and the stars, the sky and the waters, and of how life and death creates more, actually, instead of immortality. So out of the bamboo branches, there came the first human beings. And in the Tagalog story, all of the teleseria family drama didn't happen. It was just, they threw rocks at each other, and then the rocks became the land, and from the land grew the bamboo. I really love doing this. I really hope you're showing this to your children, my friends, mostly Jen, Mylene. Anyway, so the bamboo grows, and then the bird comes. Where's my bird hand? Boop, 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 boop. And it's like, what's that sound in that bamboo? In some versions, the bamboo grows legs and just follows the bird around. And the bird's like, what is going on with this thing? So eventually pecks the bamboo open, and that's how the first human beings come out. I used to do a poem or a version of the story where I explained that my gender is kawayan, or bamboo, because I have both masculine and feminine, and the first plant had both the first man and the first woman. I've heard in some Tagalog versions that the first man is called malakas, and the first woman is called maganda, strong and beautiful. And then in the Bicol versions, they don't have names. In the Basayan versions, they're called Kalake and Kabaye, or Sikalao and Sikalay, or Sikalak and Sikabay. So there's a whole bunch of names that come with that. And that is the first part of our creation story that we're sharing today. So it's common in both the Tagalog, the Bicol, and the Basayan. Tagalog, Bicol, and Basayan. My geography. Anyways, I have the map in my room. I should have brought it here. Then I'd take it off my wall. It takes a long time. So in those three regions, the bamboo is our first sacred plant because in all three versions, regardless if a bird does it or an intense family drama does it, the bamboo is the first plant to grow from the earth. And that's where us as a people come from. And so I think it's really important to continue to share this creation story among our people and among our children and continued generations. And not because, like, scientifically, well, the first way that humans came out was through this grass that looks like a tree that is a plant. Technically, bamboo is a grass and not actually a tree. That's not what we're talking about. When we're talking about the sacredness of bamboo or kawayan to our cultures, we're talking about the way how it was in everything that we did. It was in how we built our houses. It was in how we started our fires. I asked my dad, how would you start a fire back in the homeland? And he was like, "Oh yeah, you chop a bamboo, like a big one, in half, so it's a little bowl, and you put some tinder, which is usually coconut husks, and you use some sticks, and then it creates a spark in the bamboo, and then lights up the tinder, and then you have the fire, and then you build all these other wood around it, right?" Um, and it was just a huge part of how we created uh, ourselves. That plant is sacred because it supported us. We could also eat it. So one of the reasons that I play the kubing, which is made out of bamboo, at the beginning of every story is to honor our first sacred plant. And I suggest if you come from the islands, if your heritage is Tagalog or Bicol or Basayan, to also honor the bamboo and bring that into your home as well in some way. Now, people might be like, can I get a lucky bamboo plant? It's cute. I've had a lucky bamboo plant for a long time. Not anymore. I think I gave it away. But it's not actually bamboo. They just call it that because it looks like bamboo, but it's actually a specific kind of tree from the African continent and not actually bamboo from our region of the world. So but there's like rattan stores that also have bamboo things that you can also bring into your house to kind of just honor our heritage and our culture. Um, yeah, so that's the creation story. And another thing that I like to do as well around bamboo is like a meditation prayer. So I do this meditation with a lot of folks. I'm really big into meditation and grounding and centering, especially during these times that are extremely stressful and anxious and full of intensity. I close my eyes and I imagine that I am a bamboo plant and that my roots are going into the earth and that my branches are going into the sky. So I connect with the first waters and the first sky and into the earth. And so the representation also of us as of our people, the Tagalogs, the Bicol, the Basayans, as coming from bamboo is also that we are the connection between Tubigan, the waters, which represent our ancestors, and the sky, which also represent a different form of our ancestors. But they also represent the different parts of us, the parts of us that are deep emotions, that are dreams, and then the sky that is also the part of our soul that is our mind and our thoughts, and how we build and understand the world around us. And so when we do this meditation about imagining ourselves as a bamboo. We breathe in the light from the sky and the waters from Tubigan, and then we breathe out and let that light or let those waves take away our worries, and let our grandparents, the sky and the waters, hold that for us, so that we can center ourselves and into our loob, or our core sense of self, that whatever chaos or suffering or pain that's happening around us, um, that we're supported by our oldest ancestors, Languid and Tubigan, the sky and the waters, through the connection of the bamboo. All right, so I think that's the teaching that I wanted to give around bamboo. We're almost at 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to then conclude with another creation story, which is attributed specifically just to the Tagalog. And it's about the coconut. So, in honor of the coconut, I'm going to light a candle into this coconut shell. Ooh. It's a great coconut shell. Okay. And I'm like, do I just hold this here? What do I do? My hands are gonna get tired. Okay. So here's the second story, which also begins the same as the first story. A long, long time ago, at the beginning of creation, there were only three beings. Batala, which was a giant humanoid type being. Ulilang Kalulua, which is a giant snake that lived in the skies. And Galang Kalulua, which is a giant head with wings. Because you know what? Anything goes at the beginning of time. Anything goes. So, the giant humanoid that is Batala, that's just kind of like roaming around in the valleys and the caves and the mountains, is probably it's normal to us, but we'll see. You'll see why. You'll see why. Anyways, what is normal? So they all existed. They didn't know each other existed because the beginning of creation was wild and vast and huge, until one day, the Ulilang Kalulua, the giant snake in the sky, was like, oh, wow, there's like a whole different thing going around down there. It's like, what is that? There's green stuff and hills and mountains. And so Ulilang Kalulua flies down and was like, whoa, this will too be my domain. Until they're like, oh my gosh, what's that thing? Who are you? And then the giant humanoid's like, I'm Batala. I'm the ruler of all creation, because I'm like the only being that exists. And Ulilang Kalulu was like, whoa, no, you're not. I am the ruler of all creation. Very rude. Anyways, and Batala's like, I guess we can share. And then Ulilang Kaluluwa is like, no, we cannot share. I do not like sharing. So I like sharing. Anyways, I as in the storyteller. Um, but the snake was super mad. And so they had a big fight, a huge fight. And then Batala won. And they were really sad about it, because they were like, I'm alone again. I could have had a friend, but this snake didn't. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have said I was the ruler of creation. I don't know what to do. Anyways, they buried the body of Ulilang Kalalawa, sadly, and but to honor the other being that existed in the world. And they continued to roam around, just trying to explore and thinking about, like, maybe I should create more people. I think I have that ability. Maybe if I make them out of mud, or maybe this bamboo is going to help me. Anyways, and then one day, ran into this giant head with wings. It was like, whoa. I'm Batala, ruler of creation, but also could be a co-ruler. I'm not really attached to that title. Just looking for buds. How are you doing? What's your name? And the giant head with the wings, his name Galang Kaluluwa. And Galang Kaluluwa, it was like, Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. I thought I was the only one. Yeah, let's be best friends forever. And then Batala was like, oh my gosh, yes. Finally, I'm so lonely. Yeah, best friends forever. Um, so they become best friends forever. But unbeknownst to Batala was the moment, this always happens, the moment that Ulilang Kaluluwa, which in Tagalog means the orphan soul. Um, Batala doesn't have a translation into English, which is interesting. Like a lot of Tagalog stories just translate it as the creator. Um, but the moment that Ulilang Kaluluwa died, then death was introduced into the world as usual. And so something began to happen with Galang Kaluluwa. They began to grow old and sick through aging, and then was soon approaching death. And Batala was like, "What is happening? Oh no, this is my fault. You can't leave me." Get really teary eyed because I too understand what it's like, as most humans do, about not wanting people to go. Um, and Galang Kalulu was like, shh, shh, it's okay. I'm still going to continue on, even if this part of me that you've spent so much time with, and that we just been together for so long, it's um it's not going to be here anymore. But that's the beauty of death, and also the sadness of it. But there's going to be um, something else, and it's my final gift to you. You just have to follow these instructions exactly, because I know what you've always dreamed of, Batala, because I've been your BFF, like, well, it's not going to be forever now. Whew, it's a sad title. I've been your best friend for a long time. So I have this final gift. Once I die, I want you to bury me in the same place that you buried Ulilang Kaluluwa. And I want you to tend to that, to our graves, um, as long as you can, with all the love that you've shown me, and all the years that we've been together. And then Batala, who probably like me is a giant softie, was like, okay, okay, I'll do it. And so when the time came and Galang Kaluluwa passed on, Batala brought their body to where they had buried Ulilang Kaluluwa, and buried them both side by side. Weeping the whole time, just watering the whole area with their tears, and just tended to the area like Galang Kaluluwa had asked. And then at some point, I'm bringing it out again. It's not bamboo, but it represents a plant. A plant started to grow from that area, um, and it was astonishing to Batala because it grew so large and tall. The body that looked exactly like Ulilang Kaluluwa's body, like of a giant snake. But then, at the very end of it, instead of a snake head, big green wings started to grow. The leaves looked like giant green wings, like the wings of Galang Kaluluwa. And then, in the center of those wings, started going these big brown heads. Um, and when they fell open, they cracked open, Batala would look into them, and they had fleshy stuff that you could eat and water that you could drink. And then Batala realized the final gift of Galang Kaluluwa, um, was that now Batala could create more beings on the world, specifically the human beings that Batala wanted to create, that would look like just like a smaller version of Batala. So Batala is like giant. And and with this new plant, this new being that is introduced, then they could use the wood from the trunk to build houses, or just the leaves for shelter from the sun. And then they could have food um, in the big heads or giant nuts, because there would be meat to drink, meat to eat, the coconut meat, and water to drink. And that was the first coconut, or nyog. And so Batala created the first humans. And for me, this is also an introduction to the other sacred plant of our people, which is the coconut. Um, and this is another plant that's sacred because it cares for us, just like the bamboo cares for us and is part of us. And now there's this whole like all these health crazes now about coconut oil does this for you, and drink coconut water, and now eat coconut sugar instead of like sugar cane, um, and cook everything in coconut milk and coconut everything. Ugh, I want coconut milk and coconut water right now. Anyway, yeah. And I use coconut oil for my hair and my skin, and also to cook with. So, but not on high temperatures. Be really careful about high temperatures. I would suggest sunflower oil instead if you're looking for cooking advice from someone who's like an okay cook. Um, but in the story, it really shows us that that the coconut tree predated us as human beings, and that it was a gift, and to kind of understand that all plants are gifts, and that we come from them, and that they're our elders. And so part of our work here as human beings is to care for these plants, because of how much we rely on them, and they take care of us in turn, in this unconditional love that Galang Kaluluwa had. Galang Kaluluwa means the oldest soul. Um, and then people have also asked, well, why did there have to be an enemy as well, and why is that part of the coconut? And I think it's important to understand the start of the story, and how Ulilang Kaluluwa did not want to share, and what the repercussions of that. It isn't like people aren't gonna like murder you, but Batalo was like asserting boundaries and being like, okay, well, we could share, we could be friends, but Ulilang Kalalua wouldn't have that. Um, and so the gift of the coconut is not meant to be hoarded by one person as like the king of the world, right? It's meant to be shared. Um, it's meant to build friendships and community. And the amazing thing about also the coconut tree, um, is that coconuts can last so long in the ocean, and they can just bob for days, probably months, until they find land, um, and then can just grow from that land. And so, um, and then start giving their gift of coconut to that new island. That's how they've spread. I guess scientists are still trying to figure out where coconuts come from because of how fast they. We're in a debate. It's around Southeast Asia and South Asia. So like India's like, we have coconuts came from us, and Southeast Asia's like, no, coconuts came from whatever. It's meant to be shared, right? Another fun fact, coconut water is so close to the plasma in human blood, that during World War II in the Philippines, when they ran out of blood transfusions, they would be keeping people alive through transfusing coconut water until they can get the right blood type. Miraculous. So, yeah, please honor the coconut and also the bamboo, as part of our culture. Use it in your hair for coconut oil, in your food. A lot of the ointments that our herbalists create are paired with coconut oil. And then the cooking, like in Biko culture, there's so much cooking with coconut milk. It's so delicious. Oh, yeah. If there's any other questions that you have, otherwise I'm going to conclude. But I just wanted to share these teachings and these creation stories. I remember I had, I think, an Anishinaabe friend who asked me about the storytelling protocols. And I was really sad because we don't have them anymore due to the hundreds of years of colonization. And they've been put in these books as kind of just like relics of our past. But I really believe that they can be used as a resurgence to kind of understand our ancestors' wisdom and our wisdom today about how important bamboo and coconut is um, in the story of our people, but also in the story of our culture, in the story of a holistic health and spirituality that we can have that really points to um, our own ancestry and our own healing. And so, another thing that is a teaching on coconut, I'm remembering them all like suddenly as I'm like, gonna go. Wait, another thing is about cleansing. And uh, my beloved elders on this land, Turtle Island, um, have taught me cleansing using sage or sweetgrass or cedar and burning these sacred medicines. Um, but for us, it's actually, and in the different stories and talking to different elders, the Philippines, you burn coconut. You take the husk on the outside, and then you set them on fire using coals um, or matches or this that you can get from the dollar store. Um, I also do a little prayer or a chant when I'm cleansing the area with coconut smoke, and it goes like this: Uli lang kaluluwa, galang kaluluwa, batala, batala, batala. And so this prayer or song is just honoring the three beings, the three Tagalog beings that led to the creation of the coconut, and also asking them to cleanse and clear the space of other beings. And so it represents the story of both like unconditional love and gifts, and as well as setting boundaries. Which is represented by the fight between Ulilang, Kaluluwa, and Batala. And so that's why we use that as a cleansing plant when we're trying to clear the space, clear our mind, and clear our bodies so that we're ready to receive what the next moment can bring, so that we can be reconnected. And so it's not just like a plant that is good physically for us, but also good on a spiritual level, and returns us back and connects us to creation. Yes, so those are the teachings around Nyug, the coconut, and Gawayan, the bamboo, and how they're connected to our creation stories. You may have noticed there's suddenly music playing, and that is my neighbors upstairs, who are fantastic musicians, and they love to rehearse because they are professional musicians. And they also have adorable children, which we heard earlier. So be prepared that that's just going to happen for any of these live streams. Anyways, I'm going to play this kubing, play out, and I will see you next week for more Agi Agi. So maraming salamat po. Gugurang mabalos. This has been Lucayo telling you stories on this araw ng bulan, or araw ng buwan and aldaw ni bulan. Monday. The day is Monday. It's the day of the moon. All right. Ingat ka.